What's up? What's up? Good morning, everybody. So, before we get this episode started, and before I bring Nikki onto the stream, um, kind of wanted to preface this entire topic, and I like to I like to try to make light of a lot of situations. I like to make people laugh. I like to try and do my best to lighten the mood in regards to certain situations and things like that. But before I bring Nikki on here and we speak about the entire year of 2020 in review, there really, there really isn't a lot to laugh about. There really isn't a lot of things to try to, lighten the mood or anything like that. So before I bring Nikki on here, I just wanted to. Everybody that follows me knows exactly where I stand on a lot of these topics that we're going to speak about today. But I've always wanted to dive in a little deeper and talk about it more. So let's get this episode started. Let's bring Nikki in.
Aloha, good morning.
Good morning. I was literally thinking about wearing my shirt too. It's a good choice.
Only right.
It's only right. Absolutely. But I went with the good old Kobe Bryant and Gianna Bryant jacket because in the year of 2020 review, that's pretty much like the first major tragedy we had for the year. So, um, before I brought you on, I was just speaking on behalf of myself. Um, I was saying that I always consider myself kind of like the class clown, right? I like to make people laugh. I like to joke around. I like to do anything and everything that I can to try to lighten the mood and try to bring a smile to people's faces in the face of adversity or hard times.
Right.
But when you look back in the year of 2020, it's hard to do that. It's difficult to do that, and not a lot of people get to see this side of me where I'm not laughing, I'm not smiling, I'm not being a jokester. This is 110% unapologetically me, and that's because I have a lot of strong feelings and a lot of strong opinions about what had happened over the course of 2020. And a lot of it has affected me on an extremely personal level. And a lot of it really led me to being genuinely hurt and upset, um, severing relationships with people because so I just want to hop into it and then just go. I kind of wanted to like talk about it in blocks and not so much a chronological order, but kind of just in blocks, right? Um, and you know what? It is one of the funny things I guess I could talk about is there we were on December 31st, 2019, right? Going into the year 2020, we thought, holy shit, man, 2020 is gonna be lit. It's gonna be out of this world. We got so many things that we're gonna do and accomplish. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And for the most part, the beginning of the year was. It really was. But for so the day Kobe Bryant, Gianna Bryant, and the rest of those people lost their lives on that day in the helicopter crash. So for sports fans, obviously, extremely devastating, right? Absolutely devastating and a total punch to the stomach, a real gut punch. But then it affected me on an extremely personal level more because um, so in my household, right, in the typical local Hawaiian household, right, very dysfunctional, very, very sectioned off, and everybody's got their own thing and doing everything. Everybody's always arguing with each other, whatever. Everybody's always fighting, not getting along. The one thing that really brought us all together in the household where we were truly just at peace with each other and enjoying each other's company, my dad, my mom, my brother, my sister were huge Los Angeles Lakers fans. And during that time period, Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal and the Los Angeles Lakers were the shit. They were like the quintessential, just like absolute badasses of basketball at that time. And we would all gather and we would watch Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers play and destroy their opponents and go and win all these championships together. And that was the one thing that really brought us together as a household, as a family. So that was extremely special for me because I've always, in my head, wanted that all the time with my family. Like we could just be together and enjoy each other's company without having to like bicker at each other and argue with each other about anything. And that was the one thing that did that. Watching Kobe Bryant and the Lakers do that, did that for me and for all of us. And so the day that he passed away, absolutely just wrecked me because I think about the kind of person that he was and the millions of people out there that kind of share that same sentimental connection to him that I do broke my heart because it's like a simple thing of just playing basketball and being amazing and great at what you do can bring people together no matter what that is. Just dribbling a ball up the court and shooting it into a basketball hoop, you can change someone's life, man. You know what I mean? And so that it really that one event right there really trickled down into like so many other things after that. And so that was like the first thing that happened that really had an effect on me. Was there anything like big that happened to you, whether it was a great thing or like a tragic thing that had happened for you personally in like that first beginning part of the year?
So, just to elaborate on my experience when that happened, me and Kaveh and um, Kave's little brother and his girlfriend Lanson and Alexis we were all in New Zealand when that happened. So, kind of being away from the United States and let alone home, it was just kind of weird because of the time difference too. You almost feel like, is this a dream or is this real or is it really
Oh yeah,
happening? And
I could imagine. Yeah.
I can tell you the exact event that we were doing on our trip that we kind of just stopped for a second and we're like kind of doing more research because Kaveh, he's a big basketball fan too. I think it's just in your guys' family, the love for basketball. And we were on a boat tour and we're going to see like a hydroglyphic in a rock in the middle of the ocean kind of thing. And there's nothing to do, so you're just chilling on the water and then you see that. And then right away, Kaveh kind of knew that it struck a nerve for you. Or like, just because he knew how much you liked the Lakers and how much basketball means to you, you were in mind. So it was just like a hit on history, It's no different from like, I'm sure people were distraught when Prince passed away or when Michael Jackson passed away. Like some people
absolutely.
heavily influencers in that aspect of somebody's life, of even if you didn't get to know them personally or even meet them or even get to see them live, you knew that you admire it because they pushed you to a goal, a dream, or had hope for something. So I can totally understand and relate to what you're saying on why it impacted you that way. Even though it's not like, that's not your family member, but
Yeah.
it
Right.
it struck a nerve for you because that's what brought your family together in that sense, you know? It was like almost like that white flag of peace and that common like um I'm not so it didn't hurt me personally, but to watch how it affected everybody, you knew it was just a moment for them to breathe, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Right.
For me, what hurts is Gigi passing away, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's because you could tell that girl was destined for greatness, you know? Like she took after her father, you know, and I can only imagine as a like an auntie what it would feel like to lose a child, you know? And I think that's where I have my hurt in that specific event is
Mm-hmm.
my empathy towards the mom, you know? And as a wife too, like to lose not only your child but your husband in one heartbeat, you know? And not being able to have any kind of closure or something as sudden as that happening and there's no rewinding, there's no taking it back, there's no redo. Um, yeah, that's where my heart hurts, you know, in
Right.
that fixed situation. And
Yeah.
there's not much you can do for somebody like that, you know? Like, meaning, what I'm trying to say is, like, there's nothing in this world that could possibly help her heal or replace the love for them, too, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm just appreciative that everybody was sending so much love towards that family, you know?
Right. And a lot of the mainstream media, like sports broadcasts, ESPN, Sports Center, all that, they really did make sure that it they weren't the only two that died now. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't the only two that died, right? There were other people, the Altabellis, the Zobayans, all of them, they lost a lot of people. I think there was like 7 people that passed away, 7 or 8 people. So it's, it was really important, and I thought that was really awesome that it wasn't all just Kobe and Gigi. No, there was a whole families that are losing that lost their wives or their husbands and their children. So, you know, that was that was that.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Any,
you want to kind of rewind a little bit, though, more towards the ending of 2019 so we can kind of brush upon
absolutely,
uh,
absolutely.
and I wanted to even acknowledge Ihumatao in New Zealand. So, for all the indigenous people that are listening out there, my hearts go out to you. Um, in all forms, whether you're Maori, whether you're Native American, whether you're Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan, whatever it is, whatever kind of indigenous culture you have, some,
Yes.
my heart goes out to you because I think people that not necessarily should use the word uncultured, but for the people that are not educated in why certain things should just be more like black and white is what I want to say. Like just because there shouldn't have to always be a reason to question somebody's belief of sacredcy, you know, or what's sacred to them and what they honored, you know. I would never go into a Mormon church and start preaching Christianity, you know. Sometimes I think people just need to remember to stay in their lane
Right.
and respect and honor the next person because we all have a type of history, whether you're African American, whether you're Polynesian, whether you're Native American, whatever it is, your history is still within the DNA's generations after you pass away. The heartache will continue to live on if we don't set peace to it, if we don't make a change now. We as people cannot continue to repeat history. I think that's where we fail as now Americans, right, is that if we knew we did all these wrongdoings to native tribes and native people, why continue to do those wrongs? You know, why,
Right.
as people would say, why whitewash our history? You know, um, and nobody should really grow up feeling angry. You know, and I've talked to this about with my mentor is that we are not born angry human beings or in any shape, way, or form. We are taught that. So if our tutus and our papas and all of for me, my abuelas and my abuelo and like everything in our past history, our past generations, if they hold on to a certain part of history and continue to teach that, and there's no way of unifying and trying to heal, that anger and that heartbreak, that hurt, that wound will still be open. And that's kind of like, I'm only starting off this topic that way because I feel like that's where it all stems from for all the protests that happened late 2019 and in 2020. Is that a lot of anger and a lot of revenge in that sense of, or what is the words that I want to use? Resentment stems
That's a good
from
one. Yeah.
history and years of not healing, not doing right by the people, and not hearing them the first time. Because what's sad for me about Mauna Kea is that this is not the first time. It's like,
No.
when will enough be enough? And that's no different with Black Lives Matter or even Ihumatao. The
Yeah.
fact that that happened simultaneously for me was crazy, that two different Polynesian cultures had to fight for their land of rights of saying no, this can't be happening.
At the same time, nonetheless. Literally
Yes,
at the same time.
yes. And I don't know if anybody that's listening got to experience Mauna Kea, but when I went, it was the most grounding experience ever. And
Yeah.
I never felt so connected to uh, whatever anybody wants to call it, whether it's an entity, whether it's Mother Earth, whether it's specifically the mountain or the people. The energy around everybody was one goal, and that was for peace and for respect and to honor something that will never go away. Hawaiian culture will never go away.
And it was truly peaceful. It was truly 1,000% peaceful. You could go up there and that was the one time where I felt like there was just peace. There were thousands and thousands of people there, and not one person had any kind of malice or any kind of hate in their hearts. Everybody looked upon you and smiled at you and welcomed you with open arms there. And that was just one of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever experienced.
But you also have to acknowledge that there was peace, but there was also this anxious worry of
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
to basically go back, like go into combat mode and fight for something that you believe in. That, it's, to me, it's sad that you would even have to fight for it still till this day. In this art, like this, it's just, you knew. Let me just rewind. I appreciate and I respect 100% that Hawaiians have a system. And they use Kapu Aloha and Aloha Aina as a system to keep that peace on the days that they did not have to fight.
Yeah.
And it was a system that everybody needed to be on the same page for it to be this successful. That's how come I feel like it was able to reach across the world and everybody unified. No matter how far you were, they tried to contribute. And I wish that was something Black Lives Matters protest had, because it was such uh, it was so heartbreaking to see all the writing and all of that, you know? Or like, I guess where I really want to give props is just all the Hawaiian people that knew, like, it had to be peaceful. Even when we protested for Black Lives Matter, it was peaceful. We didn't have to go to that extent of raising hell to get our message across. And I understand that everybody expresses their heartache differently, and that's why I cannot and I will not tell the next person that was in the mainland what they did was wrong or right, you know, because I'm not feeling what they're feeling.
Right.
I'm not in that position to say if it was necessary or not. I think it's a blessing that I do live in Hawaii and that I am far away from that, of not being in that energy or that proximity of having to really experience it and understand why it went to that extent. Um, but for us as people to stand by the mountain and protect it the way we did, I just wanted to applaud everybody for staying consistent, you know?
Yeah.
And it makes people want to continue to fight that way, you know, of still having a sense of peace, but still having a mission to accomplish, you know?
Mm-hmm.
As a Kanaka, how did you feel? How did that take a toll on you? Especially you have Hawaiian ties to the Big Island, you know what I mean? Your family's lineage goes back on in Maui and on Big Island, you know? So how did that make you feel?
Well, first of all, obviously, as a Kanaka Maoli, I feel like I have it embedded in my DNA uh, to go where I feel like I'm being called. Um, and of course, listen, it's like, so when all of that first started, back in, I believe it was 2015, um, when that initial fight against TMT and the Kanaka opposition to the development of TMT on Mauna Kea. At that time, I was just, we're speaking on like how I used to be, just like absolutely carefree and just wanting to do whatever the hell I wanted to do, party up, all of that. But there was always when I would see the imagery of what's going on, the songs that are being sung, the chants that are being uh, said, the pictures and videos that I would see, it would always freeze me in my tracks, and it always stopped me, and it always felt like a slap in the face to me, to like wake the hell up, boy, and start doing something in some kind of way, shape, or form. Do something, and I didn't. And I've obviously, as I got older, and here's the thing, right? With a lot of major movements and a lot of big social injustice and cultural injustice moments, it goes huge, massive, extreme coverage on it, and then it just disappears, right? So when they had first stopped the construction, and then the media stopped talking about it. Obviously, the media stopped talking about it, but the Kanaka didn't stop talking about it. They were still there. They were still going. They were still fighting behind the scenes and doing all of that. And that's not something I realized. That's not something that I had an immediate understanding of. And so this most recent occurrence, I believe was it 2018, 2019? I feel like it was so long ago now. It was around approximately.
Mm-hmm.
The very first day that I learned about what's going on Mauna Kea, seeing the National Guard there, seeing them arrest all those kupuna on there, that was like, that was the moment in my head and in my heart that I said, okay, enough is enough. Something has to happen. something has to happen. I don't care what anybody tells me, whether you are for TMT or whether you are not. The imagery of kupuna, well in their 70s and above, being zip tied and carried into a paddy wagon for standing up for their culture and for their beliefs is absolutely gut wrenching. You can be for the project, fuck it, I don't give a shit. But you cannot tell me that did not like hit some kind of heartstring in you to just for a second say, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right path we should be taking. Maybe this isn't correct, what we're doing here. But that didn't stop them. That didn't. And here I am saying to myself that there are people in this world here that are from here and of this place, right? It's not just David Ige. It's not just UH and David Lasner. There are other Kanaka that were very much so a part of the process to make that project happen. And when I realized that, and I'm sitting here watching this happen and watching it unfold, in my head I'm thinking, damn, we would really put money over our people. And you would put the dollar sign over our culture. Man, and just to continuously see more and more people getting whisked away and taken away for just being and standing for what they believe in. And when I had and you better believe that before I actually did go up there, every single day I was trying to figure out how I'm gonna get there. I have money. I have more than enough money to just be like, you know what? I'm going to take a couple of days off. I'm going to hop on a plane and I'm going to go over there. But then I'm just like, okay, how am I going to get there? Who's going to pick me up? Who's going to drive me all the way up to Mauna Kea? Who's going to do this, this, and this, and this? And then all of a sudden I get the opportunity to go. Absolutely. The next day at work that we had all gone was an extremely crucial day of work for me, because we were supposed to be getting ready for some kind of corporate visit or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I needed to be there. I absolutely needed to be there, or else my team and everybody else would have just had a hard time, keeping it together, right? But that's neither here nor there. But the opportunity for me to go to Mauna Kea was something that I couldn't pass up. And I'll tell you, the entire drive from the airport to there didn't really hit me until we got onto that stretch of highway and until we started seeing, and it was something out of a movie, man. It was ridiculous because it was foggy. You could barely see on the highway. But as you're driving on this highway and through the fog, all you see is just High Hawaii appearing one by one by one by one as you drive along this highway, and you see all of these Kanaka walking and marching towards the campsite, towards the pu'uhonua. And I just immediately just had chicken skin. And I just had a little breakdown. I cried. I cried so hard. And, my experience on there was, I documented it as best as possible, but I didn't want to. It's not something that I felt like, a lot of people went up there just for a photo op, or just to get a couple videos, or a chance to meet The Rock, or a chance a chance to just, they knew famous people who were going up there, maybe I might go and see a famous person up there.
And I want to elaborate on that because I think you kind of caught everybody up to that very moment where I kind of scolded my husband too.
Yeah.
Because he was with you when that happened or when you went. And I have a heavy, well, not, I shouldn't say it. Well, I do. I kind of have a heavy background when it comes to Hawaiian culture and what I believe in and what I respect, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Because I grew up paddling since I was a toddler. As soon as I could swim, I was in that va'a. And I dedicated myself to hula too. So there's a certain aspect of it when I become serious. It's not something to play around with. And also because of my spiritual walk, my spiritual work, I'm a hard believer of being present, and being
Yes.
being aware of your surroundings and what you're getting yourself into and making sure that you are mentally there, especially once you step foot on that mauna. I scolded Kavehi because I knew us being separated, he wanted to talk to me, and that's fine. But my whole point of view on that was once you go there, you shouldn't even be on your phone. You should be 100% in person, meaning mind is there, soul is there, emotions are there. Connect with fellow Kanaka. Help where you can help. And I think that's where my seriousness of this is no joke. Don't disrespect not only the people that are there, not only the Mauna, but also your ancestors. You have the koko
Aye.
of
Yes.
this land, the blood of this land. And your sole purpose shouldn't be like how everybody else. I'm not saying everybody was like that. There was few people that were there for photo ops and stuff. But my whole point was don't be one of those people. And don't ever put yourself in that position of being told you were this there for the photo.
Right. Don't give yourself the opportunity for somebody to say that.
Right. When you come back home, I would rather feel your experience because you have so much to share with detail. And that was the one thing that was so honorable too, is that when I got to go up to the Mana, the fact that they made themselves so productive of putting on classes, educating people, uniting and empowering Manawahine, and not only that, Akanaka, having a system where you were fed, where you could get a Kanaka Uber. All the things that they provided was to make sure that their people were good. And in that sense, to me, in that moment of time, it almost kicked on everybody's switch in their DNA of remembering how things worked back then.
I'm remembering how easy it is to do that as well.
And I want to go back and emphasizing the system. People need to start respecting the Hawaiian culture system, whether it comes from fishing system, the mahina, knowing when to plant, when to harvest, and all of that. There was a system for a reason, and that's what I like to live by. Purpose. We need to have purpose behind what we're doing and making sure that it makes sense. And everything that the Hawaiian people did were for purpose. It had a reason behind it. And it worked. And that's what showed. That's what advocated around the world. That it is possible to be sustainable on your own. That was the message that I caught, and that made me feel so humbled to be in the presence of having to see that system work again, no matter how far apart of the generations are. The kupuna were able to teach the new generation what was old school, but something that should have never been forgotten. And, it's just sad that it has to take that in order for it to happen, that something tragic has to make Kanaka want to go back to their culture. The culture should have never been lost. And that thing when I went to New Zealand, that made me cry. That hurt my heart. That the holy culture has overtaken the land so much
Yeah.
that it's still almost a little bit shame for people to practice their culture. And I'm so sorry that I'm getting emotional, but
No,
that's
that's
how
fine.
hard it hit me when I went to New Zealand to see Maori and not people that of Maori culture or blood to still be able to speak in their native tongue and be taught that in school and to honor that. That's what I wish that people would uplift Hawaiian people to pursue, to make them want to speak Olelo Hawaii and not shame them,
Yeah.
or practice their culture and not be deemed as luau style, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
and I think that's really why it really did hurt me, and it took me home, you know, that the people don't have that freely or that type of freedom to self-express. And what pissed me off was, even though the media showed a lot of good things, what really pissed me off was when that little C's or the truth or the treaty of like, you can go home now, we won't we won't continue production. And they
Yeah.
had the audacity to not show, oh, you guys want to talk about Aloha Aina, but look at all your opala that you left behind, which is not true. It's like they seized those opportunities to trigger people to make sure like it was not all good, like they presented it,
Yeah.
and that's not
They
true.
did everything they can to make it be like, oh yeah, that was cool, but it was actually worse than what it was.
Even when they cut the flag, they knew it was going to trigger people, and what they really wanted out of people was a reaction, to react negative and get out of their character. But the Hawaiian people, yes, we felt it, but at the same time, we stayed in line of what we are still our mission. We didn't want that.
Yes, we were unbroken through all of their tactics and all of their little ploys to try to get us to break that kapu aloha. It didn't work. It didn't work.
And
And I
that's
think that's what
great.
infuriated a lot of the officials, and you know, for some of the news stations here, where some of their executive producers know that getting a certain reaction out of us would bring in more viewers and more comments, no matter how nasty and toxic they are, onto their social media platforms. They were upset too, so they were really trying to grasp at whatever straws they could to get that reaction out of us. And yeah, they came close. Absolutely came close a few times, but I don't think we ever truly broke.
And that's what's great, that we still stayed in harmony, still tried to fight Pono, you know? And
Yeah.
I wish that essence carried on to future protests that we didn't even know was going to happen later on, you know?
Right. So
Um,
yeah, I the feet. Yeah, oh man, there's so much, right? Like you said exactly there. We absolutely wish a lot of that, because our battle against TMT and our movement of Aloha Aina, Akapu Aloha, went global. We went worldwide. It was huge. It was huge. People were talking about it back in the continental US like it was everyday normal news for them. Massive, big name, triple A tier celebrities were speaking about it publicly and freely on their platforms. And unbeknownst to us, we definitely didn't see what was gonna happen. Um, and honestly, it didn't feel like it was that long. It felt like it happened so soon after. When and I'm gonna say it exactly for what it was. And I'm not too sure. I don't, agree to disagree. Anybody that's watching, we did not see the murder of George Floyd happening, and the eventual fallout of that. So when all of that was happening, when the protests and all that was happening, a lot of us really wish that we could have seen a movement like ours, peaceful, understanding, unbreakable, and that's what really made our movement successful. And I honestly do believe we succeeded 100% and then some. Obviously, the battle with Mauna Kea is not over. They could just come out and just say, okay, you know what, we're going to resume construction this date, and we're going to go for it. And guess what? We're going to go back and do it again. But rewinding this topic back a little bit when it comes to the rioting and the looting and all of that going on, in no way, like you said, am I going to sit here and say that that wasn't the right way. Because I don't know how they feel, what they felt. I can't say that their way of expressing it was wrong because I don't know. But what I can do is take a step back. And like I said from the very beginning when it was all happening, at least try to understand why that's happening. Try to understand, not agree that it was correct, but understand why they're doing it and understand why it's happening. And I do. You know what I mean? I absolutely can do. Because of an enormous history of just, racial segregation, systemic racism in general, all of that. I understand it. Do I agree with with the way they went about things? No. But I understand it. And I can't be upset about the way they went about doing their protests, but I understand it. And that is where I had a lot of times where friendships were tested, honestly. Now, agree to disagree. That is an extremely prevalent theory when it comes to a lot of discussions on certain topics. Agree to disagree. We can agree to disagree that pineapple belongs on pizza or not. We can agree to disagree that people think that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time. And I can say, hell no, it's Michael Jordan. We can agree to disagree that country music sucks. No, it doesn't. What we're not going to agree to disagree on is racism. What we're not going to do is agree to disagree on the fact that racism is not a thing anymore. That it's not a big deal anymore. Because I have a lot of people in my life that say that racism, it's just not there. It's not a thing. It's not as bad as it used to be. No. It's very, very much a thing. Because you might have a different skin complexion or a different skin tone, you might not experience it as much. Or you might live in a world and surround yourself with media that tells you otherwise. Because people would rather ignore it rather than accept that it's very much a disease, just as much as COVID is. Throughout this entire 2020, it is like we had two viruses, right? Coronavirus and racism. This is why this is most likely gonna be a multi-week topic because there's so much to unpack. We covered the last half of 2019. I spoke on Kobe Bryant, and now I'm kind of in the next portion when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement. And we still need to talk about COVID, and we still need to talk about former President Trump and his administration and the subsequent events that happened after the elections were over. But with these last 15 minutes or so, what I will say is there's a lot of double standards even in our culture when it comes to racism. And that that is my extreme number one pet peeve that I wish we as a people would get better on. And I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna just say it. We can be just as racist as the people we claim to hate us. We okay. You don't like when certain people call us names, but you're gonna go and you're gonna make fun of Micronesians. You're gonna tease Micronesian people. You don't like you don't like you don't like being spoken to a certain way or anything like that. You agree that racism is a problem, but you're gonna just go and speak on white people like they're a disease. The fucking stupid fucking howlies. Go back to where you came from. Blah 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 blah. It's just as bad. It's just as bad, and we honestly aren't gonna be able to move forward in any way, shape, or form until we can put that behind us. We have to. That's just one of those things where we hold on to, and it anchors us, right? It doesn't allow us to move forward.
Right. Can I just share and elaborate on that? And this could probably be just our last topic. So I can transition into next week. But I have a cousin that shared with me her experience on basically when she identified that she was kind of being racist or put in a characteristic that she didn't like. And she's Kanaka Maoli. And she realized it at a young age in elementary that she carried her dad's teachings or her dad's anger about holy people. And
Right. Racism isn't born into you, it's taught. It's taught.
She thought she would beat up this Holly boy, and she had no reason why she didn't like him. She just knew just by his skin color and what, as Holly,
Yeah.
they took
Yeah.
her. But what she finally realized at a young age is that that boy was actually going home to a terrible family. I don't know how she discovered that or what made it click in her head. But that very moment, she realized that it was not her anger. She had really nothing against this poor boy. The boy did not do anything to her, but simply that she was taught to hate that culture for something that probably that boy's family or just him and himself, it wasn't him that took the land. It wasn't him that did it. I feel like when it comes to racism, we're just taught to hate in general mass. You're categorized. And
Yep.
personally, I'm grateful. I'm grateful I live on this island because I will never experience what people experience in the mainland. But I do know when I go to the mainland, I'm deemed as Mexican, and I'm not Mexican, and I have nothing
Yes.
against Mexicans.
Yes.
But let me go back to over the border, and even for like my father, he is from Panama. He has Panamanian blood. But when he lived in California at a young age, they deemed him as Mexican, as somebody that was an immigrant, somebody that did not belong here. But my grandfather is in the military. My grandfather was in the military. My grandfather is from here. Don't judge people by the color of their skin or what you think that they are or whatever culture that they look like.
Right. There are also so many stories of black men and people of color that would go and serve in the military back in World War II and even before that. But the second they came back to the United States of America and they got off that plane and they took off that uniform and walked back into their neighborhoods, they were also just being called derogatory names and all of that because people wouldn't care.
And
they don't care.
On top of that, because my dad was deemed Mexican, he had no choice to be in a gang. Now it's survival mode. And that is why my family chose to not live in California before my time, before I was even thought of, before I was even born.
Right.
I'm so grateful that my family moved back to Hawaii. and did not experience that. I'm happy I didn't grow up having to fight for my identity and say to people who I am every single day. I am grateful for that. And that taught me to never judge the next person. On top of that, my mom's father, he's Okinawan. He has Okinawan blood. When World War II was happening, he was deemed as Japanese. And that's how all the concentration camps happened and all of that. And people's lives are ruined at that point. Even though he ended up getting drafted to fight the war, the same war.
Right.
And I think it's just time for people to start seeing souls and hearts instead of the vessels that we live in. Because we don't know what's in that person's blood.
Right.
You can look at me and tell me I'm not Kanaka, but do you know my blood? No. Do you know my upbringing? No. I can look at you and say you're not Samoan.
No. I don't look like it. I don't look Hawaiian. I don't even look like any kind of Polynesian.
But what I'm saying to you is, who is the next person to judge you on the percentage of your blood or the percentage of your knowledge, the percentage of your heart, you know? And people need to understand that there are people out there that care for the next culture or care for the next person with all their heart without having to know their struggle. We should start honoring the next person that actually treats the next person to just being a decent person and being kind to them. Honor them.
Yeah.
I think that's where the shift needs to happen. Is that all of this could have been avoided if we acknowledge that the problem still exists.
Yes.
And that to be fixed. Those are the
two. And a lot of people say that the racism issue happened so long ago. There are documents that came out in the 70s and 80s of companies declining employment to certain individuals because they are part of the Negro race. So if something like that is happening in the 70s and 80s, you cannot tell me that it's just magically gone now, right? You can't tell me that racism doesn't exist. That's like one of the most popular lies, amongst other things, that happened last year during this entire thing. It's like racism deniers trying to live in a world that isn't necessarily a reality. It's a thing. It's very much still a thing. And like you said, we just... Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, but I think
go ahead.
Was not the influence of our leader. And I want to leave that off on our last note so we can transition into next week's topic. It was the influence of our leader to encourage basically not the fact to be racist, but the fact to now not
be ashamed of it. Right.
Not cover up.
To be enabled to be proud of the way that you view certain individuals without any kind of punishment. Right.
That's what really happened. Was he was so accessible and his energy lingered no matter where it was through your TV, and the way that he represented himself as being no filter. Now that's how America ended up being labeled as a no-filtered country. And when you having that power of having no filter, that's when your true truth comes out. The real you, your true colors ended up showing.
And that's why I think we've seen a movement like we've never seen before in our lives. Like I discussed, I think even with you and more so my father, throughout my entire life, I've never seen any kind of movement like the Make America Great Again movement. Of course, we've seen people support candidates and support their presidents and all of that. But never in my life have I seen an organization of people rally so, what is the word? So radically for an individual. like we have seen over the last handful of years. But it goes back to you making a statement that he's just that accessible, and he is unhinged, and he has no filter. And I think certain American individuals have been waiting for somebody like him to come along so that they could just openly show their true colors and speak their truths and what they believe is right openly without any kind of punishment or any kind of people telling them, oh, you need to relax and not do that because their leader was the person allowing them to do that, right?
Right. But was America ever great? But that's what I mean. Like,
That's debatable, right?
great,
It's debatable.
great, make America great again. But what was so great about it in the first place? If how our foundation was built on was all wrong. To me,
Right.
this is a personal view. How we built up to be great was to step on people, was to
Correct.
take what was not ours and call it great. Conquering
Correct.
that way and colonizing that way isn't great.
Right. And no matter what they did, no matter how they tried to erase certain parts of history, it never worked. They tried so hard from the inception of schooling and schools and textbooks and history books. They've done everything that they can to rewrite history in a way that makes them look like angels from God, and to make it seem like they came and saved indigenous people and educated and helped indigenous people out. Yeah, in certain ways they may have gave them some resources here and there, but that doesn't mean they didn't kill off hundreds of thousands of them before, or burn down thousands of villages, and I have issues.
Yeah.
but it it's very, 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 very apparent and evident that history books have tried to be written in a ways to make them feel
Very,
like they were better. Yeah.
very sensitive.
Yeah.
On that note, I will close this out for today.
There's so much.
I know, and I know you want to keep going, but we'll
Yeah,
get
I know, but I can't.
on this on part 2 of next week's ʻIke next Sunday at 10 a.m. So if you want to join us in our conversation for part 2 and possibly part 3, depending on how next week goes,
Yeah, please let us know. Let us know.
be here and ready to hear your thoughts and your concerns and how basically 2020 made you feel. So till next week, aloha Jenesus.
Aloha, Nikki.
Okay, bye.
Bye.